Welcome back, everybody, to Deck Doctors EDH, where we're treating decks and performing miracle cures.
I'm Dr. Nick, and here's my co-host, Dr. Pete. We're here to diagnose your strategies, prescribe some synergies, and make sure that your deck is in tip-top shape.
So let's get into some EDH cures. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification icon so you never miss an appointment with the Deck Doctors. All right, Dr. Nick, so what commander are we looking at today?
We have Kastral the Windcrested today, a 5-mana 4/5 bird scout.
Government drone.
With flying. It also has the ability that of whenever one or more birds deal combat damage to one of your opponents, you may do one of the three following. You may put a bird card from your graveyard or hand onto the battlefield with a finality counter on it. You may put a 1/1 counter on each bird you control. Or you may draw a card. All three fantastic abilities. Now, Kastral here likes birds. He likes attacking with multiple opponents and connecting. All right, with those three abilities, you can hit as many opponents as you have and choose one of the three. Now, a quick rules thing here. Pete, what is a finality counter?
So finality counter is just a counter that creates a replacement effect that says if this permanent would be put into the graveyard, exile it instead.
Seems pretty fair when you're cheating out creatures from your graveyard or hand.
So there aren't too many ways to build this deck. It really is just government drone tribal. So with that, we're gonna get into my deck tech here. So my main theme of the deck is just going to be bird tribal.
Drones.
Yeah. So we're looking at just the best birds that can help other birds.
Government drones.
So we've got cards like the Gust Cloak Savior, which does a similar thing to what the card Reconnaissance does. And then we have cards like Safara Sky's Blade, one of the few non-birds that I put into the deck. It just is going to make all your birds indestructible. One of the main sub-themes of the deck is historic permanents. So that's going to be legendaries, artifacts, and sagas. So if you go into the deck list, you'll see all the different cards that I have in there. We have cards like Elspeth Conquers Death, which is just a really good removal spell, a hate piece, and it has a reanimation with +1/+1 counters, which is also another synergy within the deck. Next small sub thing that we have is hate birds.
You mean not bears?
Not bears, hate birds. So we have cards like Aven Mind Sensor, which is going to stop your opponents from searching their decks. And then we have a card like Aven Interrupter, which is going to soft counter a spell from your opponents and then plot it and make it more difficult for them to cast spells from exile. Another sub-theme within the deck is going to be tokens. So we're going to make tokens wherever we can, and we're going to make them good with cards like Aven Wind Guide, Curiosity Crafter, and Nesting Dovehawk. Another small synergy within the deck are counters. Now we've got several counters in the deck that we want to work with. We've got the obvious +1/+1 counters. That's what our commander does, so we're going to work with that. We're going to try and proliferate it, and then we're going to have rad counters, and then a very strange counter that probably not a lot of you have heard of, feather counters. So feather counters, we have cards like Kangi Airy Keeper, we have Aven Mimeomancer, and we have cards like Soul Catcher's Airy. Another counter synergy within the deck is rad counters. The only card that we have that messes with rad counters...
Time out. There is a radical counter, dude?
No, it's a rad counter. It's not short for radical, it's radiation.
Oh, that's not so rad.
It's not rad at all. But we have Vexing Radgull, which is a bird, and Vexing Radgull is going to give your opponents rad counters, and it's also going to proliferate, which is another minor synergy within the deck. Then we've got +1/+1 counters, which obviously our commander does, but we want to put a little bit more of that into the deck just to buff that synergy up a little bit. So we've got cards like Ishai, Ojutai, Dragon Speaker, which is just gonna get huge.
How huge?
Huge.
How huge?
Really huge.
How huge?
And then to go along with the Vexing Ragdoll and its Proliferate, we've got cards like Thrumming Bird, which is gonna deal damage and proliferate for you. One more small synergy that I'd like to put in the deck is a card called True Conviction. We're really running this card for its double strike, because every time your birds hit your opponents, you're gonna get your Kastral triggers. So with double strike, you're gonna hit them twice, so you're gonna get 2 of those triggers for each opponent.
Seems good, Pete. What would you pick in that instance?
I'm mostly picking the +1/+1 counters and drawing cards, because the +1/+1 counters is going to help you win the game. Drawing cards also going to help you win the game. I have very few ways to play around with the finality counters in this deck. So there's a few fringe cases where I'll end up using that, probably to get a key piece out of the graveyard. Or if, I don't have the mana, I'll use it to throw a bird from my hand onto the battlefield. So we're going to be running a pretty standard removal package in this. We're going to be running cards like Generous Gift, Pongify, Swords to Plowshares, your bread and butter white and blue removal spells. Now I chose not to run any board wipes within my deck. I wanted to keep my birds around, and I was also trying to keep the budget a little bit more friendly, so I didn't throw in cards like Psych Rift. Those are cards that you could obviously throw into your deck if you have the budget for it. You don't need us to tell you that Psych Rift is a good card. We're running a little bit of ramp in the deck. We're running mostly Artifact ramp with Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Talisman of Progress, and Thought Vessel. One of the kind of fringe artifacts that you don't see very often anymore are the Key Runes. Now, Key Runes are mana rocks that you can animate into creatures. And the one that we're running in this is the Azorius Key Rune, because you can animate it and it becomes a bird. It's very fringe, but you never know when you might need one extra bird. One other piece of ramp that we're running is Cartographer's Hawk. It's a bird, it hits, goes and gets you a plains, goes back to your hand. Now this is one of those fringe cases where you might want to actually use Kastral's ability that puts a bird from your hand onto the battlefield with a finality counter, because Cartographer's Hawk can bounce itself back to your hand and remove that finality counter. And then you can just keep on reusing Kastral's ability to keep on putting it on the battlefield without having to pay the mana cost.
Something to keep in mind with Cartographer's Hawk, though, is the Cartographer's Hawk must deal damage to an opponent that has more lands than you.
Correct.
Otherwise, that card would be busted. Imagine white being able to ramp like green.
Another thing we want to touch on is card draw. So our commander is our main source of card draw, so we're not putting a ton of card draw spells into the deck, but ones that we do want to run are cards like Bident of Thassa and Aerial Extortionist. All right, and we'll just cover our win conditions real quick in the deck. Our win conditions are big birds. We just want to make all of our birds big. We'll fly over our opponents and smack them in the face with those wings. Now this deck comes in at around $430 for the one that I built, but we also have a budget version of the deck that comes in just around the $100 mark. So we're cutting 19 cards from the high budget version, 13 of which are coming from the mana base. Now we have a 2-color commander. You don't need to throw a ton of money into your mana base to make it good. Just run basics if you want. It's fine. You're gonna be able to make those mana pips that you need. So with those 13 cards that we're taking out of the mana base, that's accounting for about $200 of the budget drop.
Impressive.
So really what we're seeing here is that birds are cheap. Birds are very cheap. There's not a lot of really expensive cards with that card type. Of the other 6 cards that we're losing some of those really expensive card draw spells, some reduction spells, some token synergies, and some +1/+1 synergies. But we're also going to be adding in some budget double strike token synergies and other birds. It's Kraken Packs time! All right, so this first pack is going to Brandon. Brandon, congratulations and good luck. We're opening Oath of the Gatewatch today. Now, if anybody remembers, we have some pretty spicy cards in this and a potential for some really spicy cards. So, first card is Mighty Leap, Consuming Sinkhole, Ondu War Cleric, Kozilek's Translator, Saddleback Lagak. We have a Full Art Wastes, Jawar Isle Avenger, Warden of Geometries, Spawn Binder Mage, Vampire Envoy. Our first uncommon is Cliffhaven Vampire, Make a Stand, Relentless Hunter. Our rare is Captain's Claws. And then we have a Full Art Forest and an Eldrazi Scion token. Congratulations, Brandon. Those will be coming to you in the mail.
And this pack goes out to Professor Investidor. Good luck, and may your pulls be gracious. We have a Mighty Leap, Abstruse Interference, Aukum Flame Seeker, Natural State, Slaughter Drone, Core Sky Climber, Zada's Commando, Crumbling Vestige, Containment Membrane, Hedron Crawler, first uncommon, Grip of the Royal, Relentless Hunter, Baloth Pup, and nice Oath of Nissa. A Full Art Swamp, and a 2/2 zombie token. Thank you for commenting, everybody. These will be coming to you shortly.
Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe for your chance to win more packs from Kraken Packs.
Well, Pete, I thoroughly enjoyed your deck tech as always.
Oh my God, what is that? Oh my God, what is that?
I'm a little curious though, because typically when you build your decks, you do build a little bit more interaction into your builds.
Yeah, so I didn't really build a ton of interaction into this because we're really focusing on swarming the board and killing our opponents that way. A lot of times when I'm focused on the interaction with removal and counterspells, I'm really trying to get things out of the way, but birds already kind of go over everything, so it's less of a concern for me in this deck. However, if you feel like when you build this deck you need more interaction, throw what you need in there and build it to your meta.
Fair enough. So our meta is a little bit more high powered, so I kind of took that in mind. So there's some key that we in essence built the same deck. There's very few ways that you can build Kastral, but I do believe that I added a little bit more interaction pieces, and I just wanted to see how you feel about it. So Pete has 15 more creatures in his build. And there's actually some significant, but there are some differences in the creatures that we had chose as well. For instance, I chose Aven Sunstriker, which is a 3-mana 1/1 with flying and double strike. So it's another creature to give that double strike ability to hit twice for a double Kastral trigger. Now, it may not be every creature has double strike, but it would be nice for that one hit in, give everything a 1/1 counter, and then hit again.
Sure.
So double strike is that awesome ability, but you'll get 2 triggers. But Roaming Throne actually also gives you that same ability.
Roaming Throne is a great card in this deck. I didn't throw it in mine. Again, budget conscious, but fantastic card. Play it if you got it.
So, Roaming Throne is a 4-mana 4/4 with Ward 2, so it itself has some evasion to it. When you enter the battlefield, you choose a creature type and double triggered abilities of that creature type. So, Kastral is going to hit, if you hit a bird once, you're getting 2 triggers. Throwing Bird on the Proliferate, you throw one set of 1/1 counters on it, you hit with a Throwing Bird, you're getting 2 Proliferate triggers. Some other things are Eagle of Deliverance, a 6-mana 5/5 that ETBs, and you throw an indestructible counter on a creature. Now, you're not really going to be casting that for 6. You're going to be using that Kastral ability to cheat it into play, and then put that indestructible counter on Kastral. An indestructible commander is always good. You'll never have to pay commander tax unless it's exiled, but there's also a ton of different ways to protect your commander in this build as well. High Sentinels of Arishin, a 4-mana 3/4, and it gets 1/1 for each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it. Do the math. It gets tall. It gets quick.
It's like, it's up there. And it's flying.
So it's really up there. I'm also actually surprised, knowing your playstyle. I've had the pleasure of playing with Pete for many years, so him and I know each other's playstyle, that you did not add a lot of counter magic into this deck.
No, I didn't. Again, I didn't feel like it fit the theme of the deck because I really wanted to swarm the board with birds.
Okay.
Lots of birds.
So, in this build, I added 7 Counterspells to the deck, ranging from Counterspell to Flare of Denial, and the one that I'm surprised, very surprised actually, that was missed was Lofty Denial.
Lofty Denial, I don't know that card very well.
So it's a blue and 1, and it says counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. However, if you control a creature with flying, the caster of the spell you're countering has to pay 4. So it's almost an instant counter. 4 is a hefty price to pay for something to stay on the stack.
That's a pretty good counter spell for a good cost, 1 and a blue.
Also, I added 3 one-sided board wipes. You did discuss Cyclonic Rift, so that I did make it in the deck. We all know what Cyclonic Rift does. Mm-hmm. But Raise the Palisade is a great card. So for 1 blue and 4, you select a creature type, and all other creatures are returned to their owner's hand. So it's almost Cyclonic Rift as long as you say bird.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And then another one at a hefty 10 converted mana cost.
How are you going to cast that?
A 3 white pip card with 7 colorless mana with Convoke. So when you convoke with the creature, it checks the creature types, destroys all the rest that do not have the same creature type, as well as enchantments and artifacts.
And very likely not a lot of people playing with birds.
Yes, not too many people are playing with birds. But
you got to watch out for the birds that have multiple creature types, of course. But you know, for the most part, you're wiping everybody else's boards and keeping yours intact.
100% accurate. So, some other things that I decided to add was a recurring card draw theme without Kastral. So you could use the abilities of cheating in cards, recurring cards, or even making your board a little bit bigger. So recurring card draw, we all know it. We all know what we're going to say anytime someone casts a spell.
Do you pay the 1?
Ristic Study. We also have the Fish Stick Study.
Fish Stick Study.
With Mystic Remora. Great early game card draw. It'll get you a little bit ahead. Also good for the late game.
And just a little side note, you could play Ristic Buddy in this color too, but I don't think you added that.
I did not add the Ristic Buddy for one condition only.
It's not a bird.
It does look like a government drone though.
It does look like a government drone.
So, 2 other pieces of recurring card draw that I threw in the deck were Biden of Thassa, great card, also added in Pete's, and Reconnaissance Mission, which reads, whenever a creature does combat damage to an opponent, draw a card. So, the main win condition of this deck is similar to yours. Get through with birds. It's pretty much what Kastral wants to do, so we're going to do it.
Fly over them, slap them with some feathers.
Exactly. Also, getting more value than your opponent. I did add a few mana rocks and Reliquary Tower that did say no maximum hand size, so you get to keep all those cards that you're drawing with cards like Ristic Study, Fish Stick Study, all the ones that I named prior. So, with that, You're going to load up your hand with Counterspells. So get those cards loaded in your hand, protect your board at all costs, destroy theirs, and fly in for the win.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining us again for another Deck Doctors EDH Deck Tech.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and follow us on all social media platforms for your chance to win a Kraken PAX.
Thanks for joining us.
Doctor.